What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion, and if you guys have been tuning into the channel recently, you guys know that we got ourselves a mono, a Hypermotard 698 mono RVE. For the sake of not saying that all the time, we're going to call it the mono. And before we go for a ride and before I show off the bike to you, it's got fuel, but we got to do this. You got to put your Motomillion keychain on your motorcycle so that we're ready to ride. And I also want to mention something with the key. First impressions, I haven't seen a Ducati key like this for a long time. This is just a traditional key. This part looks Ducati, this part doesn't, but it's just a key. But let's look at this bike. It's beautiful. It is based off, I guess, a dirt bike that's made for the road. So it is a supermoto style motorcycle. It has one caliper and one rotor. No, it's not set up for drag racing. I guess it doesn't go fast enough to need two rotors. In some countries, like Canada, I think it's the province of Quebec, you're actually taxed or insured based on how many rotors you have in the front. So there you go, a little bit of consumer advice for someone looking in Quebec to buy one of these. It has one rotor in the front. It looks beautiful in this RVE paint scheme. But I'm sure you guys have seen this bike before. It's a little sharp over here. It looks amazing. It has Brembo front and rear brakes on it. It's got a dual exhaust system. Let's start it up. Let's look at the dash. The dash is pretty basic. It looks really cool though. I think it doesn't look bad just because it's basic. I don't think it has a fuel gauge, so that's going to be something that we have to keep an eye out. But let me get my gloves on because I'm dying to ride this thing. This is going to be my real first ride impressions of this amazing supermoto from Ducati. Let's get on it. Let's hit the road. So here we are on the 698 mono, guys, and this is the RV model. So we have the added benefit of the QuickShifter. So the first impressions are the brakes. Look at these. It dives down right away. The suspension travels quite a bit, but the brakes are something that I'm very, very, very impressed and happy with. The sound is a little different, but the brakes for a factory bike feel very sharp and very, very direct. So it's something that I like to have, a confidence inspiring brake on the bike, especially given some of our experiences that we have with some of these brand new bikes we get, that the brakes don't feel so good. This feels amazing. The sound is a little different, right? Because it's a single cylinder bike. So when you're full throttle, it sounds nice, but when you're idling, it kind of sounds like a lawnmower. If you want me to be extremely, extremely critical, it's not a bad sounding lawnmower, but it's not the prettiest sound I've heard. I wonder how it will sound with an exhaust. The bike feels extremely light and nimble. It makes you feel like you're a much better rider than you are, or it just makes you more confident because there's not a whole lot of weight to push around. The other thing is the seating position is something that I'm not used to, but it directly reminds me of the Multistrada V4 RS that I did a first ride on. Without the bulkiness of it and without the extra weight, this is pretty skinny and slim here. And I have done motocross once in my life, and it kind of directly reminds me of that motocross bike that I was riding. The power is another surprising factor. It has a lot more power and a lot more pull than I would have expected, because I did think it's a single cylinder bike. I don't even know how much power it makes, 70, 80 horsepower, but the lack of weight I think does really help it in terms of the speed department. The bike is a little shaky at slow speeds from the engine, just I guess it's a single cylinder engine after all, but when you're riding it, it's pretty smooth. And as you see, for stuff like this, it's pretty light and maneuverable. The foot pegs and the way that they are kind of help for you to get a good balance on it. Speaking of the foot pegs and the ergonomics, I'm almost 6 foot tall and I tippy toe on both feet. If I want a flat foot, it only has to be 1 foot, and I got to put my foot down, which is something to consider if you're considering to purchase this bike. I think there is lower seat options, or there must be a way to lower it so that you could enjoy all this fun, because this is a lot of fun. I think if you're a person who is shorter, should definitely try to experience a bike like this, because I don't think I have had this much fun on a motorcycle for a while, because everything we have is pretty intimidating and crazy for the roads. And this seems like this is the perfect bike and what you would want to have on the road to not get in trouble. Or, I mean, you could get in a lot of trouble going up and down the stairs, but we won't talk about those things. But the speeds are not that crazy, and I mean, we are in an urban environment, which I think this thing will shine. But if you're going around canyons and twisty roads, this thing is, I'm telling you, this thing will be fun, because I did take some on and off ramps while getting here. I could only imagine how much more fun it would be on a canyon road, and maybe one day we'll ship this off to California so that we could get some riding done there. But until then, we are in a city, and this is the type of riding that I do. So one thing, I was having some problems with finding neutral as I started the bike, but that's all solved now. I think it was just the fact that, well, now first gear won't come up. There we go. It's just a new bike, guys, so new bikes kind of need stuff to wear in a little bit, especially the clutch. But I'm happy to report that other than that little hiccup there that I wouldn't go into first gear, I can find neutral pretty easily. So there you go, neutral is there. Oh, again, it won't go into first easily. You got to really smack it down. The QuickShifter works pretty good too, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. One criticism I have, low speeds. This is why we don't own a Hypermotard 950 at Motomillion. I don't like the low speed characteristics, and if you see what this bike is doing, I don't think it's coming on the camera. It doesn't do it justice, but it bucks and goes back and front in low speed. So that's what you do in traffic and in a city, and I kind of don't like it, you know. It's not that what I'm talking about there, that's just me holding the brakes and not clutching in, but I'm trying to get a good feel for it. And this traffic is pretty slow, so you have to clutch in and out. But let's say if you're going 15 or 10 miles an hour, it is rather annoying. But I found a solution for it on this bike. Instead of first gear, just shift it to second gear. The bucking goes away, which is fantastic because I'm already in love with this bike. The hand controls are really good, right? We talked about the brakes. The clutch is a hydraulic clutch, so it's pretty amazing. I like a hydraulic clutch over a cable clutch because of the feel. A cable clutch, I'm sure some people want a lot more feel and know the engagement point, but this feels so much more familiar to me than anything else. And let's see if we could get around the traffic. Oh no, we can't, but we could go through here. See, this is what a supermoto is supposed to do. And check your laws before you do anything like I'm doing, because you want to make sure that you're being fully legal. The handlebars are a little wide. It's okay, we could get by. There's a pothole. We have suspension travel. Let's get around the traffic so we could continue talking about how wonderful this bike is. So you have various electronics on the bike. You have wheelie control, traction control, ABS. I think it also has some sort of a slide control. I haven't seen that in the setting, but all of those things will make you feel secure, so you can adjust it to your own liking. And let's demonstrate the QuickShifter. Upshifts are seamless and nice. Downshifts, it's a good downshift from what you want from a blipper, but that pedal, the down travel of that pedal is actually takes a lot of effort. Yes, the QuickShifter works great, but again, downshifting, you got to really step on that gear lever to get it to downshift. And I think that may be also the same thing when we're trying to find first gear. We did find neutral. Let's just scoot up front right here. The suspension travel is kind of nice. It makes it feel comfortable. It is comfortable, but I think it probably has a psychological effect that it's all soft and comfortable. It's not something that I'm very used to in terms of a motorcycle, for it to have so much travel, right? Because we're around super nakeds and super bikes at all times. I think I did already mention it to you guys that the power of it is the surprising part, and how flickable and easy it is to ride around. I want to call this the ultimate urban assault vehicle. I think we did call a couple of our bikes those things, like the Tuono, but this hands down beats the fun that you could have on a Tuono on a road like this and not get in huge trouble, because that bike is a very powerful bike. Even though against the RS4 we said it doesn't have a lot of power, and the power delivery is pretty smooth. I really didn't expect it to be this smooth in terms of a supermoto. And let's get on the highway and see how windy it is. You see, it has enough power to get around the other vehicles that you want to get around. Once you get going, the throttle is pretty smooth too, so on and off throttle is not choppy. It's very, very smooth delivery. Even though I'm in sport mode, I bet you in road and wet mode it's even smoother, but this is very, very smooth for a stock mapping on the bike. It's amazing. Oh, we're gonna hit some traffic, guys. Take a look at this. But I mean, this is so cool, because on a super bike you often have to pull the throttle, and everyone is honking and honking today. But this is I think this is a good example of the city chaos that you would get, and how you could have fun just going through the traffic if it's legal to do so in your own area. But this is kind of what makes it fun, because you could just go in and out of the traffic, try to run away from the traffic and have fun a little bit. But what I was talking about is, on a super bike, when you get stuck in traffic, or when you pull the throttle, you're already going 100 miles an hour with the blink of an eye. In this, maybe you're going 30 miles faster or 20 miles faster, so it makes it a lot safer. But the cost of having fun doesn't have that risk factor, which to me, this makes it a big winner. And also, don't forget the price of this bike. This bike is only 15 grand, guys. And if you don't get the RVE, I think it's 13 grand, which, again, it's not little money, but as far as the toy goes, and as far as getting yourself on a Ducati, this is amazing. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell you guys how windy it gets, but trust me, the lack of the windshield, after a couple exits, you do feel it. But then again, you're on a supermoto. But the handguards kind of help, right? Because you're not feeling with the wind in your hands. In this case, I'm wearing full-on leather gloves. A little bit of a wind is sometimes good because it cools things down, but luckily it's not as sunny as it usually is in Miami, Florida. Man, I wish we could have some twisty roads here. Who knows, maybe we'll throw this on a supermoto track to see if I could maybe ride this around and have some fun. The heat. So I have the temperature gauge here. It is hovering around 190 and 200. And when you stop, it doesn't have what everybody likes to make fun of, the heat of the Ducatis. So that's also a big positive. I think the engine is not covered at all. So that's a very, very big positive. Especially my feet don't feel the heat. And when you're moving, it's completely unnoticeable that you're on an engine, an internal combustion engine. The pops, I don't know if it's coming on the camera. When you shift, if you're on half throttle or more, it pops and bangs. I can't wait to get an exhaust on this. But man, this is a lot of fun. I mean, you watch videos and people say that, but until you experience it, you really have not experienced it. And I'm so happy we got this, because the roads are even bumpy and you don't care. You just go right along. Potholes, you don't care. Joints for the highway, you don't care. And the brakes feel so good. Some of these holes that I'm hitting, I wouldn't dare to hit it with a super bike, but this thing makes it a breeze. And it does have that single cylinder downshift pop or decel pop. The grips are nice. I think I may actually prefer a little thicker grip. So in this case, it might be not the MotoGP grips or the Pro Grip 717s, or something thicker like the XM2s from Domino. This view is pretty basic, but again, don't forget, we are on the entry-level Ducati, if I may call it, if you don't count in the scramblers, because according to Ducati, scramblers are a brand of its own, even though it's part of the Ducati family. But that's all the stuff we could fix, right? There's really nice clamps for the upper triple and other dress-up parts, and we'll get rid of these mirrors that don't work. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but if I show you the mirrors when you're moving, you can't see anything because they shake so much. And the bike doesn't shake that much itself. I guess the vibrations through the engine or something that comes through. But let's go around to this side. I'm having so much fun just bombing through these city streets here in Miami, because I really think this is what it was exactly meant for. But if you're going from village to village in Europe and somewhere in Italy with the big twisty roads, this will be a lot of fun too. But doesn't have a gas gauge, so you want to make sure that you're not running out of fuel. And let's go in front of this Uber. I think this is an Uber, but it may not be. Maybe it's not, but it looks like an Uber. Sorry for stereotyping the Tahoes and Escalades, but as you see, the heat is at 214. Well, that's not the heat. I call it the heat gauge because on the other Ducatis it gets hot, but your temp gauge. And I mean, there is heat you feel from the seat, but nothing like you would expect from anything else. And it feels exactly like a motorcycle should feel. You have the slight heat of the internal combustion engine when you're stopped, and I think maybe the fans are on, so I feel heat blowing here. But the fans do a good job, as you see, because it's lowering the temperatures. And I think that's all my first ride thoughts. Overall, are there things that bother me a little bit? So that first gear jerkiness, but that's solvable with being in second gear, so you got to remind yourself and learn to ride the bike. And I think as far as we know, we did solve that neutral issue, but you see now it doesn't go in first gear. So that's one thing that I got to look out for and see if it breaks in better, because that first gear is kind of hard to find. It is a pleasantly surprising bike, and I kind of said this about the GSX-R 1000, but I'm very happy about it. And it's hard to gauge how much fun is fun when people call something fun, but this is the most fun I've had on two wheels for a very long time. And I can only see it getting more fun as I get used to it. I get a little more confident on it. And also, once this thing gets a little more noise, because that's one part of the fun, guys. So I think those are my first impressions, and this is my first ride of the Mono, as we call it now. And I'm gonna go off camera now, enjoy this ride a little bit. I usually go right back to our offices and unload this footage, but I think I'm gonna go around and get lost for a little while and enjoy this bike because it's that much fun. But if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.